Hello there, Richard from budgetguitarist.com. So today we're going to do a deep dive into setting up my Squier Affinity Strat. If you have any kind of Strat, you can basically follow these same procedures. If you have any kind of Strat copy, same deal. I want to start with the tools. Some of the tools I have here you're going to need, and some of the tools that I have here you are not going to need. There are cheap alternatives to some of these. So I'm just going to start over here on my right and make my way from my right to my left. First of all, you're going to need a bunch of lint-free cloths, and this is just like an old ripped up clean t-shirt, and that's going to be for cleaning. You're going to need some kind of a string winder, and there are manual ones that you can kind of crank. What I've got here is I've got a Nairobi cordless screwdriver, and then in the video description you're going to find Amazon affiliated links for a lot of this stuff. This guy right here, this is made by I think Dunlop, and it's super cheap, and it is a super great idea for a string winder. So for putting strings on, taking them off, this is great. You're going to need some kind of cutter, wire cutter. This was specifically designed to cut guitar strings. Works really well. In terms of cleaning, I should move this over here. I've got four things. I've got lemon oil to clean the fretboard. I've got guitar body polish, which is sort of unnecessary, but I have it. I've got cymbal cleaner to clean the frets, and this is like a secret weapon right here. This stuff is great. You buy a bottle of it. I bought this at Sam Ash for $13.49, and this is going to last me the rest of my life. And then I've got a bottle of naphtha, which is lighter fluid. I'm not going to need this, but if you have a guitar where you've got a lot of dead crusted on skin on the fretboard, this stuff is pretty good for cleaning that kind of gunk off. I've also got a guitar pick for kind of gently scraping that stuff. This is a new guitar. I'm not going to need it, but I have it. You're going to need some kind of a tuner, which I've got. This is not mandatory, but is a really good idea. It's called Big Ben's Nut Sauce. If you have any kind of guitar with a trem system where the string's moving around a lot, this is a really good way to keep the string from catching in the nut slots. So that's good. Any kind of pliers, needle nose, whatever for tightening up parts. I've got a screwdriver kit here, and part of the screwdriver kit is a set of feeler gauges. You're going to need a set of feeler gauges. You're going to need a screwdriver of some sort. I have got two different string action gauges to show you, made by Baroque. There's this guy here, which is the old faithful, and then this is the newer version of it, and it has got, let me hold this up, it's got, see the slots at the top there? That's for measuring fret height. Do you need to be able to do that? No. It's just if you're curious. So this one, I think you can get these for around $10. And they're super cool. I have got an Optivisor here, and this is for when I have to look at these teeny little lines and I'm 58 years old and I can't freaking see them. That's what this is for, like a magnifying glass. If you don't want to buy a set of these, well, you really should go to Harbor Freight. You can get a set of these for like $10 or some silly thing. Or you can use these things, this is like what jewelers use, like in the movies, to look at diamonds. And I put stickers on mine so I could see. Okay, and then if you want to polish your frets, which is not necessary, I've got various fret erasers, and these are basically like sandpaper. And this is 1200 grit, 2000 grit, and then I've also got these polishing cloths, and these are like 3200, 5000. So we're not looking at doing extreme fret work here. We're just trying to polish up the frets. This step is not really necessary. But I'm going through every single tool that I could possibly use to set up a guitar. And then finally, I've got this guy here, and this is cool. So this is the StewMac Luthier's caliper, and it's got a really cool function. In addition to being really well made, if you see this little slot down here where my finger is, right? This can accurately measure within 1/1000th of an inch how tall a fret is. So why does that matter? Well, if you get into doing your own fret work, you can measure your frets and you can see how tall they actually are, because I can play guitar one day and I feel like the frets are too low, and then the next day they feel fine. When you set up guitars based on like feel, it's a really bad idea. You should always measure, because we're not the best judge of that kind of stuff. This is totally unnecessary, but it's cool. So now I'm going to go through the 12 steps. And I'm going to go through them in order. We're going to do a complete setup of this Squier Affinity Strat. Let's get started. Let's meet our patient. I bought this in 2023. This is a Squier Affinity Stratocaster. The color is Olympic white, which is kind of hard to see. It's a little washed out in my lighting here. It's almost a little yellowy. It's like a white with a little bit of yellow mixed in. It's got a black sparkle pickguard, which I really like. And it's fairly lightweight, plays great. And we're going to do the complete setup on this guy. Step one, we're going to remove the old strings. Now, when you are removing strings, do not just take wire cutters and stick your head down here and look and cut the string. Because what's going to happen is the string's it's going to be cut, it's going to fly up at great velocity, and it's going to hit you right directly in the retina. And you're going to say, man, I wish I would have paid attention when that budget guitarist guy, that Richard guy, was telling me how to do this. Always detune the strings before you cut them. Okay. Perfect. So now I'm just going to cut these guys straight across. Does it matter where you cut them? No, but I would recommend you don't cut them here close to the saddle because I like having all this room here. Okay, so now this particular Affinity Strat has got some vintage style, really interesting tuning pegs. Let me show you a close-up. You might see already, like, I didn't do anything and the string just popped right off. And basically the way these are designed is that there's a hole that goes right down the center of the shaft. And the concept is you put the string into the hole and then you bend it around the shaft and wind it, okay? And there are a lot of advantages to this, but the biggest advantage is like speed. Taking these off, as you can see, they just pop right off. So your Affinity Strat might not have these holes right down the center. So in your case, what you would do is you would just put the string through. When you put the strings on, you put the string through the hole and then bend it. This particular guitar, I can't really demonstrate that. Okay, so taking the strings off, I've got them off of here. And it's really important that you keep track of all the strings that you've cut and the string pieces because you do not want to step on one of these things. You think Lego is bad to step on. Step on like an E string sometime and have it go about 1/4 inch into your foot and you'll never make that mistake again. So I'm just going to kind of, one at a time, I'm going to kind of push these down into the body. Flip it around the back. No surprises, I'm not going to step on anything. So step one, remove all the strings, the old strings. Step two is to clean the guitar. This is the point where what I would do is I would take some of this guitar polish and cleaner, spray it on a cloth, a clean lint-free cloth, and then I would just kind of clean up any fingerprints, smudges, etc. and so on. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't really care that much like what my guitars look like, but you know, other people do. So that's why I'm going through these steps. A lot of people really like what's called the nitro finish, which is what they used to do in the old days. And that's where you get the guitars that look aged, you know, over time the finish comes off. And this is like poly God knows what finish. So this is basically spray on plastic, which is what any guitar under $1,000 you're probably going to end up with this poly stuff. But you know what? I think it looks great. I don't have a problem with it at all. So I clean the body. A lot of times there'll be a lot of dust here underneath where the strings are. And I'm just basically cleaning it. Step 3. Tighten up anything that's loose. Now you've got to be careful with this part. So I'm checking the switches. I'm checking my jack here. My jack is nice and tight. Checking the pots. I said switches. There's only one. Let's go up here. If you've got rattling on your guitar, it could be down here, but more than likely it's going to be that these nuts are not tightened enough. And you know, if nothing else, these should at the very minimum be finger tight. Now, of course, you could use the appropriate tool and put it on there like a socket wrench and tighten them that way. If you use something like pliers or needle nose pliers, you don't want to do it like that. You want to like use your fingers as guides and get down in there and just make sure that if your hand slips, you're going to slip into your finger and not into the wood. I can already feel, I mean, this is a brand new guitar, so these don't need to be tightened. They are plenty fine. Here's a tip that you don't often see. You ever notice how on some guitars, the tuning keys are real easy to turn, and then on some other guitars, they're hard to turn? Well, the reason why is because there's a screw on the end here. Can you see it? How about I hold it up here and take a still shot? In this case, these screws are Phillips. So if you want this to be a little harder or a little easier to turn, you can tighten those screws. It's kind of funny, like these are pretty tight, and like this one here is a little looser, and this one is very loose compared to the other ones. So I think I'm actually going to adjust that. So here's my Phillips, and all I'm going to do is just kind of righty-tighty that guy, tightening it up a little bit. If you're a younger person and you've never heard that, it's a saying to remember which way to turn a screw to loosen or tighten it. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It is the case with most screws in most situations, but not all. But in this case it is. So I'm turning it to the right, and there. Now these two keys have the same feel as these. It feels a lot better.